Welcome to the NDIS Property Australia podcast. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hi, this is Erin. This podcast today is an update on our recent sold out project in Queen's Gardens, Perth from late 2021, the Queen's Residences. This podcast was originally intended just for our Queen's investors only. However, the content is a great way for our listeners to understand the behind the scenes of an SDA build and is of great relevance as we prepare to launch a new Perth development in Point Coogee. Now let's move on to the podcast where Min talks to the developer and provider from the current development.
Thank you, everyone. We've got a quick little podcast here for 15 minutes summary of our recent launch back in December of Queen's Park Residences in Perth. We have here today two special guest speakers, Michael from VA Disability and Howard from Adelphi Living.
Hello.
As well. Michael, you want to introduce yourself, please, Michael?
Hi, my name is Michael Kwan. I'm the director of VA Disability Support. So we are the developers of Queen's Park Residences in Queen's Park in WA. And Howard here with me is the director of Adelphi Living, who is the care provider and also the registered SDA provider for the project. So Howard has 20 years plus experience in aged care and disability care. And I have 20 years plus experience in the development and real estate.
Wonderful. Michael, can you give us a quick little summary of the project thus far? I mean, and what is the project?
Yes, 14 luxury apartments in Queen's Park. It's not far from Howard's head office. It's right behind Carousel Shopping Centre, Westfield Carousel, which is one of the biggest, the second biggest now, shopping centre in WA. It's about 5 minutes drive through Bentley Hospital. There's also public transport. There's the council pool and rec centre nearby where the participants can do their activities if they need to. So it's very equipped. We made it to be future proof and upgradable. Some of them are upgradable to the higher level of disability accommodation. It's built for purpose, and it has all the requirements. It's got rooftop gardens where the disabled person can do some of the activities. They can plant tree or plants, whatever they want to do, and there's a disabled access, and it's fully designed, built for purpose. Howard has over 60 disabled participants.
So, Michael, before we jump to Howard, let's talk about you, Michael.
Sure.
Where are we at with regards to DA lodgement and why the delay thus far with council and so forth?
Yep. So we are just refining the drawings and the specifications. We are amending some of the specifications to suit the disabled person requirement. The council requires us to nominate plants and things like that we are using on the balconies, on the garden beds everywhere. And we are getting them repriced with several builders. It's just slight jump in building costs, about 20% at the moment. So we are looking after that, making sure that it will be approved and built as approved.
So if it wasn't for the council requirements of doing the small changes to the design, aesthetic design, you would have had this DA lodged already, wouldn't you?
Probably, yes. So we are planning to have this lodged very soon. So it will be constructed by June this year.
Construction
So we are,
start, right?
because of
Yeah.
correct, construction start. That's the plan. The bank requires us to clean up the quotes, the building quotes. So it's what we need to do, the small bits, the nitty gritty that you do before you start a development. So
Yes,
yeah.
wonderful. Another question I have is, with this small delay of the DA lodgement and construction start, when do you forecast construction completion, and titles and handover, settlement kind of thing in the coming year or early year? What's your time frame, do
Probably
you think?
around second quarter.
So construction
Second quarter
completions,
of
when do you think? What
2023.
month next year? What month?
Probably around March, April, and we aim to have handover a month later. So second quarter of 2023.
So April or May is when our investors will look at settlement, pretty much around that period, right?
Around that period, yes.
Cool. So that's pretty much it with regards to construction. Now, can we hand it over to Howard to introduce himself and talk about his relationship with this site, please? Howard, hello.
Oh, good morning. Yep. So I think Michael was being a bit kind to me in terms of my age. I was in the aged care industry for over 30 years, but I started very young. And during that time, I also had some disability homes under the old state scheme in WA, which wasn't a good experience for a few reasons. One of them, they weren't viable. And I was also on the board of a Mosaic, which is a middle-sized disability group charitable in WA. So I had a fairly good understanding of where the industry was. And when Julia Gillard announced the NDIS, I got very excited. Funding in aged care, as you're probably aware, is an absolute disaster, and the outcomes speak for themselves. And I got started looking at some smaller investors to do some SDA homes for me in south of Perth in Mandurah, and we were the first to build those homes and accommodate participants in that area. So I've really been at the forefront of the whole industry, if you like, without trying to be the biggest or the best or actually telling anybody that that's where we're heading. Mm-hmm. But we've got investors. We've probably got about 25 houses at the moment and another 15 to 20 being built, but we're talking from Geraldton, which is 4 hours from Perth, down to Bunbury, Busselton, and across. So I'm finding niche little locations. But if I can talk about your location, when Michael came to me, I got very excited because it is a terrific location. There is a demand map which the SDA has. The NDIS put that out, and it's a high demand location. And more particularly, what you're looking for with participants is out in shopping centres. If they need rehabilitation, you're looking for an Olympic-sized swimming pool and rehabilitation services, which is only another 500 metres down the road.
Meters, yeah.
And it's got the train, transport and bus. So to me it was an excellent location. And the bugger, he's absolutely used up all my time on the design and looking at it, and I'm pleased with the design.
That's wonderful.
Can't say that there's anything in there that I don't like.
Yeah.
And I think you've also got that downstairs, which is more like a birthday room for participants, etc.
Activity room, and there's activity rooms in the balconies on top.
Sure.
So they can do their gardening, planting, if they want to do, just part of their rehab.
Sensory gardens.
It's going to
Correct, yes.
Yeah, everything's going to be individualised because you don't know the diagnosis of each participant, but everything is there. So I think that's very good. But I'm really pleased to be involved with this one, where we've got a growth or an expansion goal here at Adelphi to have probably 1,000 staff over the next 3.5 years going forward. We've got over 100 staff now. we'd have more staff if we could find them. They're very difficult to find at the moment. Doesn't matter where you are.
I have a question. Michael mentioned earlier that these are 14 luxurious apartments. Now, I've looked around in Perth of other stock, and as Michael and I have discussed, there's not much stock out there for SDA in Perth. Have you seen many other small sites projects like this, which are purely NDS, SDA? And if so, how do they compare these other normal standard size apartments and quality compared to the Queen's Garden residences here?
I've been involved with one, which is nice, but it's north of the river, probably 30 minutes out of Perth. These are actually oversized. So Michael's picked up the minimum sizes. And
it's over 100 square metres?
Yeah.
105, 107.
They're like penthouses, I think, if you like. They are oversized, which is you're not building obsolescence. You're building something for the future. If you've got participants now and you have a vacancy and somebody else builds something that's bigger and better and nicer, then you might have an issue. Of course, you're relying on Adelphi's good name and our service to make sure that we've got the participants for you. And we're getting probably 6 or 7 inquiries a week. We've really started to hit the straps. In fact, so those units are very, very nice and future-proof.
So, Howard, we know the answer as to why size is important in terms of apartments, but can you explain why it's more important in a disability home, why extra space for a single occupant is important?
Sure. The equipment that participants need does vary. So you can have a participant coming in with a wheelchair or requiring a hospital bed and perhaps the overhead railing to take them from the bed to the wheelchair and then into the bathroom, all through to a princess chair, which is probably 2 metres long and about just over 1 metre wide. Now, that is what the participant's going to sit in all day. That's the one that's going to go to the shopping centre. We're going to put that in the van. These are huge. So when you build a standard size, the princess chair doesn't fit.
Yep.
It just does not go around those corners, and we know the measurements. We know the height. And if you don't provide for that, you won't get the high physical support participants.
You won't get the funding.
Well, the participant will be registered for that funding, high support, but our dwelling or your dwelling won't fit or support them. There's 600 participants in aged care in West Australia that need to be out by the end of 2023. We're dealing with a couple of aged care facilities now. We've got 3 houses with 3 ladies in each, mainly dementia specific, but we did have a princess chair participant or 2 arrive and we just couldn't get them into the house, and the investor did not see any need to build it above the standards. And so that was his loss.
So 600 coming out of aged care who are disabled, going to the community, there's nowhere to go at the moment. Then we need to find an accommodation for them. Then basically.
Well, pretty much. So
wow.
If they're under the age of 60, they have to leave, and after the age of 60, of course, they can stay with us. And because a lot of my staff have come with me from aged care, I've got registered nurses, enrolled nurses who can actually care for these people, not just hand out pills and hope for the best. We've got a really good training regime and a hierarchy. Yeah. And so we're targeting them, these participants. And we've, as I said, we've got a couple of houses full now, and it's a terrific thing to see 3 ladies with dementia who didn't know each other. Probably never will because they've got dementia, but the husbands are best mates now. Yeah. And they're all sitting in this house. They're not a number.
I know I'm going off topic here, but in theory, if you get them into an SDA dwelling prior to age 65, and let's say they're living in an apartment here, just it's an example case study only, when they hit 65, their SDA funding doesn't turn off, does it? Because
No.
because the rule is 21
well,
to
it's their
65.
choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they find that Adelphi's running the facility properly or the home properly and the care's there, they stay.
Yes.
If they've got any concerns about the level of care, then they can go back to aged care. But I've got 3 registered nurses from my aged care industry and myself with that knowledge, and we know how to look after them.
Okay. Now,
We don't intend to lose them.
I didn't bring it up because I'm sure I'll preempt the question. What if a participant who turns 65, do they lose their funding because they have to be booted out of the apartment?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It goes on.
Yeah, gotcha. So, Michael, one of the unique designs of this complex is that there are OOA offices on every level. Is that right? Can you explain that? Or there's 2 or 3 OOA?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's 4, I think, 4 OOAs.
2 in each building.
And 2 in each building.
So 4
you don't need to
OOA
have
offices. 4 OOA offices, right? Which will be 10. Which will have 10 staff in there.
In 2 buildings. So 2 in each building. Yeah. So you don't need 1 per level because there's only 2 apartments in each level. So 2 or 3. But there are altogether 4 OOAs, and each front door and to the units are all 1,200 mil, more than a meter minimum. So that way you can wheel beds in, and you can wheel in princess chairs out, and a wheelchair in and out very comfortably.
That's really great how you have.
I think the OOA. Sorry.
You go, Howard. You go.
The OOAs need to be there to ensure 2 things: that the investor gets that extra funding, because the OOA only does so many apartments, so you've got to have those ratios.
I think the really good thing here with this complex is it doesn't get in the path of 10 and 1 around Australia. In Australia, other providers work on the 10 and 1 rule: 10 apartments for participants and 1 OOA office on site. Whereas this complex here has 4 of them, 4 offices for 4 OOAs overnight, correct. I assume. But in the daytime, there'll be more OOAs in the complex during the daytime. Is that correct, Howard?
No, it's the same.
OOA is really for overnight accommodation.
Yes.
And what would happen if you had 1 OOA in a set of 10 apartments? It's just not possible.
I know.
If you've got 10 apartments, you could need 3 OOAs just for the ratios to get your funding. It's just not going to work. It's a disaster.
So could your team at Adelphi have more than 4 on site?
Yes, but you don't need the OOAs. OOAs just overnight.
Yeah.
There's also office areas.
Yeah. So what I meant is support workers during the daytime. There could be a number of support workers coming and going throughout the day.
Oh yeah.
But the OOA per se is the overnight ones. Yes,
the overnight accommodation. Yeah, sometimes the participants might be 1 on 3 during the day.
Yes,
but in the apartments, we can see 1 on 1 really being the norm.
Yes,
and sometimes 2 staff to 1 participant, depending on when they need lifting.
Yes,
and turning. And you can't turn a dead weight participant, if you like, with 1 person, because you end up with a workers' comp. Therefore, it stretches back to how well you do your documentation to NDIS to obtain that funding. If you do it wrong, you don't get the money.
Yes.
So that's something we've got to be very mindful of.
So sometimes a participant requires 3 carers, but but the good thing with the Howard being there, instead of say having maybe 30 support worker, you might need only 20, where they can help each other.
Yeah, I think 20 is about right, but technically you're not supposed to use 1 carer for another carer's work. I mean, it does happen from time to time.
Yes.
In the best interest of their care, but you don't do it on a
regular basis. My bad. So I don't know.
So just so I can let our investors know, Adelphi Living has signed an agreement with VA Disability. Is that right? To be the on-site support SIL provider, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So we have an MOU between us.
Yes.
So what happens is Howard is now preparing the agreement between Adelphi Living and each individual owner.
Yes.
So to be the registered SDA
Yes.
and also to be the registered care provider on site.
Yeah, I've actually got my
Notes. He's got his
I've
notes.
got my what do we call it? Our first cut
Yeah.
from Lavin. I think I might have to sell my house to pay for it.
Yeah. So he's having another Zoom call booked in tomorrow
Yes.
with Lavan. So Lavan Lee, one of the biggest lawyers in WA, and they're very experienced in
They've got national coverage.
correct
in
in SDAs and NDIS. So we getting them to do the agreement properly
Yes.
between
Just so the investors can understand from this podcast, they don't have to use Adelphi Living, do they? They're not forced to use it. I mean, they'll understand it's more convenient, more effective by having the care provider on site and the housing provider. Yes, I understand that. But at the end of the day, the developer and you and myself, we can't force them to choose any provider. They could choose who they want, up their own choice. Correct?
because the participants can bring their own
Yes.
care provider. So Howard is not the exclusive care provider.
Yes.
So you can nominate Howard to be the care provider, and Howard will find the participants. But there might be the case where out of 14, 2 or 3 participants come in through other care providers.
Yes.
But as far as agreement with Howard, Howard has been gracious enough to provide us with a very, very economical and very cost-effective plan. Now you can sign up with Howard, and it's non-exclusive, and we're getting that ready.
Yes.
So once it's available, then they can sign up with Howard, but it doesn't stop them from signing with other people.
So, in theory, a investor might engage a different housing provider, who then procures a participant who may want to use
care provider.
who might use Howard's business via Adelphi to provide the care. Is that correct? It's possible there.
That's true. So what happens? The coordinator who is given to the participant has to undertake the documentation for SIL and SDA. So SIL and SDA are 6% of the industry and 60% of the money. It's a very, very what would I say? You need to be highly experienced to do that documentation. And the coordinators, basically, we're doing about half their work on every occasion, and we'll be coordinators in the next few months ourselves. So what the SDAs are doing, they'll come to Adelphi and find we're a one-stop shop. We've got the accommodation, we've got the care, and by golly, I can pick up my $6,000 and these guys do all the work for me. And that's not what we meant to do, but that's what's happening. And we can keep that rolling and get it out and underway.
Wonderful.
So it's the way we've worked it is efficient and effective, and the coordinator loves us, and that therefore they're encouraging the participant to
Come to him.
to come with us. Yeah.
So Howard,
But that's choice and control.
yeah, certainly choice and control. How are you going with procurement for participants for this site?
Procurement of participants.
Potential
Oh, my
participants,
goodness.
potential participants for the 14 units.
I would probably say by the time they're built, we'll have them on the wait list for every apartment. We have to realise that if they're new to NDIS, they don't have SDA and SIL, it's about a 5 to 6 month process. Not so much our end, but once it goes into that black hole in NDIS, when it comes back out with the ticks on it, that's how long it takes. So we can be looking for participants in the very near future to get there. But, I don't know if any other organisation gets the inquiries we are actually getting each week. It's pretty terrific. Location is probably important about 30% of the time. What mum and dad really want is the best place for their child. But quite often these people don't have next of kin, so they would go, if they're living in Midland or 20 k's away at the moment, then that location will be fine. In fact, it's probably an improvement. So there's all these factors that we have to take into account.
Yeah.
But we are really hitting our straps. This year has been quite amazing.
Yeah, I think of the 14 units here, we have about 6 or 7 HPSs, and the remaining are fully accessible apartments.
That's right. So if you missed out on a high physical support, you could still get a fully accessible participant. But what I like about this design, and I've been pushing for it elsewhere, is that second room. Obviously, it's a great return for the investor, but if there's a family member that wants to stay over, if they're fortunate enough to have a hobby, they can use that room. Or more particularly, if they're an overnight OOA and they're having a bad week, we can stick a staff member in there.
Yes.
So we've got all those bases covered. And at the end of the day, the streamlining, seamless care is available.
So that's pretty much it, really,
Very
guys.
confident.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Michael, do you have any final words before we wrap up the podcast for our investors?
No, not really. I'm happy with Howard. I know Howard has lots of very good positive feedbacks. He's an expert. He knows the rules. He's suitable to to be the registered SDA because of his knowledge, and he,
Licensed, yeah.
So I think it's going to go very well.
So,
In fact, we are collaborating.
So, can I bring up one separate topic which hasn't got to do with Queen's Park? Point Coogee site. Is it possible to talk about that now? Or,
Yes.
Yeah. Can you give me a 1-minute summary of that?
Yeah. Sure. So that's near the marina. It's 12 luxury apartments. So it's nestled among luxurious apartments which are between $600 to $1 million. It's one of the best locations in Perth, near the marina, near the beach. And we have one coming up soon, which Min will be involved in. Register your interest if you're interested.
Is Howard involved in that as well?
Yes, we collaborating with Howard on that one as well.
That's wonderful.
The number of the demand area is very high in that location.
Correct.
As well. So
that's why we picked that location, because
$39.5 million for SIL and SDA estimated.
And funding.
However, you could add 10 or 15% to that because those numbers have all been undercooked in WA.
Yeah.
Whereas you could go down the road and it might be $4 million.
Yeah.
So that location is, besides being a beautiful place, which it is, but that's why I jumped on board straight away. I would tell Michael, no thanks, you can have somebody else.
So Michael, when do you think you'll be able to give us more information in the coming? Is it a few weeks or a few months on Point Coogee?
Probably a few weeks. We're hoping to get the design finalized, and then once it's finalized and we speak to the NDIA about it, speak to the council, then we'll start doing expressions of interest.
Wonderful.
And hopefully, it goes off from there. But it's definitely a beautiful location.
Well, it's stunning.
Stunning location.
To be honest.
We're going to take some photos today of the site, and then there's a lot of participants there as well, so which is very important.
I think
Wonderful.
the thing to remember, in Western Australia we call it Coogee. In Sydney it's
so
Coogee.
Point Coogee.
It's just
Gotcha.
This is North Coogee. So North Coogee has the slightly less attractive suburb and a more attractive suburb, and this is in the more attractive suburb.
So Michael, this is
the other thing too is the company called Mosaic that I was on the board of actually worked heavily in that area and surroundings, and their houses, which I've been to, 6 participants, 2 toilets, 1 bathroom. So it's not just the new inquiries coming through, it's a transition. We can suddenly get this beautiful home, save money for them.
yes.
It doesn't cost any more.
So Michael, this site is 1,000 square meters, isn't it?
No, it's a bit smaller than that. So this is so we decided just to go ahead with part of the site, not the whole site.
And,
so there will be luxury apartments.
and it'll
next door.
be 100 meters from the water, 15 meters from the marina. Is that correct?
No, it's about 100 meters from the marina, and the water is just next to the marina.
Okay.
So there are cafes nearby. There's a supermarket. There's a chemist, doctor's surgery, and there's the marina. So it's a very idyllic location
Wonderful.
for the families if they want to visit the participants. And so it's a luxurious apartments as well. So it's not as close to the main shopping center, but it's definitely has its own attraction for participants.
So if we launch this in the coming month or 2 months from now, we're looking at probably late next year or third quarter 2023. You reckon completion?
Correct. Yeah, correct. So the developer who we are working with is very keen to get it started. So that's what we're doing at the moment, and we're getting it estimated because building costs at the moment has just gone up slightly. So we want to make sure that it's viable, and then we will hit the market once we know it's viable.
Wonderful. Well, we look forward to helping you promote this to our investors and our listeners who are all very keen on Perth already. And Howard, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it very much. I know you're very busy. And Michael, appreciate your time as well.
No worries.
Lovely. Nice
Thank
to
you
meet
very
you.
much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure that you are subscribed and following us so that you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this episode with those that can benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.